RTD may significantly cut routes due to a shortage of operators. Management blames the shortage on the low rate of unemployment, but the operators and drivers themselves say it is a retention problem. Many drivers say they are expected to work a 13-hour day and for 6 days a week. They also face blowback from management for taking bathroom breaks or family medical leave. David, RTD has not been at a lack of problems. This one seems new and probably the one that's really going to have the greatest risk of reducing service. What's the right response?
Well, obviously to raise salaries. They have too few employees who are having to work too many hours, and they say, and it's true, unemployment is low, and therefore it's harder to attract people at the salary they currently pay. What a business that has an ability to survive over the long term does in that situation is we say we're going to raise salaries, and then we'll get more employees in, and then the current ones we have won't have to work so hard. But they can't raise salaries, and one of the key reasons is they're $4 million in debt. And the most important single reason they're $4 million in debt is the amount of cost overruns they've had on their light rail fiasco. So they're now in this death spiral. They're going to have to keep on raising fares, which don't even come close to covering their cost of operations, and cut back service. So you pay more and you get less. And that's going to be a vicious cycle that's going to get worse and worse. Ridership's going to continue to fall. And ultimately, RTD is going to become irrelevant. They essentially committed they poisoned themselves in the long term for their sustainability with the light rail boondoggle.
Eric, this seems fairly significant, and one of the loudest voices we've heard from the drivers and operators themselves. And while I don't use light rail buses that often, though I don't want to be on one where a driver is compromised by either not getting a bathroom break or being on a 13-hour day. So I can't imagine this is inspiring more folks to jump on the bus or light rail. Where do we go from here with our RTD?
I think David has the right diagnosis. I'm not sure he has the right prognosis. I'm not sure I'd call it a death spiral or at least go there yet. But RTD is facing multiple problems. They have decreasing ridership. They have, as a consequence of that, decreasing revenue. They have debt. They have, obviously, a human resources problem with how they're treating their staff. They may not have any way around that. They need more hours out of a shrinking number of people, and they don't have a pot of money, as David points out, with which to grant higher salaries. I think it's probably inevitable at some point that we see a tax increase proposal. Whether the voters would buy into it or not remains to be seen, and I'm not sure I want to be the one spinning that one on behalf of RTD. I think that's going to be a very tough sell, but that there will be people within RTD that propose that as the out at some point. But I don't know if it's a death spiral, but it is certainly a downward spiral here. And maybe what the RTD needs to do is what a private business would do in this situation, which is some degree of triage. Maybe not all routes are equal. Maybe you need to assess where you have the most ridership, the most demand, the most customer need, and prioritize those. Just a thought.
And I was able to travel a little bit the early part of this month, and in two big cities, like everybody else, whether it's in Denver or another big city, just astonished at the ease of multiple modes of transportation, including things like Uber and Lyft. The Independence Institute has been talking about privatizing different parts of RTD for a long time, and RTD has put out contractors as part of their routes, but it feels like some of the solution might be from the private sector. Do you think that idea might grow?
Well, to determine whether that's a solution, RTD has to make a hard choice between one of two routes that it wants to take now. One, if it wants to subsidize its service, it wants to pay for its service, and I don't think it'll ever get to 100%, but if it wants to largely pay for service from fare box receipts, it needs to look hard at it and say, we're going to have to get rid of some of the inner city routes where people can't afford to ride the bus. We're going to have to concentrate on getting people from Douglas County or from Jefferson County into the city where people are willing to pay the costs of doing this. But I'm not sure that's what RTD's mission is. And if that's the case, it's got to think of a second alternative, which is, do we forego those routes, the ones that maybe people have alternatives for traveling to, and instead look for a different kind of subsidy? And I don't know the answer to what that is yet. I don't think a tax hike is going to pass for this. But do we look to get rid of some of those routes where we can do other modes of transportation and focus solely on transporting the people who have no alternatives? I don't have an answer there. I just want to throw that question out because I don't think RTD can have it both ways.
Patty, what do you think? The Caldera Express to Boulder coming anytime soon?
Well, I think maybe bungee jumping from Boulder for Caldera will work. This is such a critical time for RTD, which was set up to really help people who didn't have transportation in the city 4 decades ago. And now you all of a sudden have this increased emphasis on not, especially in the inner city, on not driving, density, no parking. You're trying to get people to take alternative modes of transportation. And in the winter in Colorado, I don't think the alternative is scooters. We need, I mean, buses still make the most sense as alternative modes of transportation. So we need to have at the highest level in this state really look at how RTD can be saved and should it be saved. Ridership, why not at this point just let people ride for free? Such a small percentage of their ridership money comes from fares. You might as well see if people would take RTD if it was free, because if no one will take it when it's free, then we really have a problem.